Hello everyone, welcome to the news desk. Rich Hagan alongside ProTour Hall of Famer Randy Buehler. Randy, yesterday we had Ian Duke in that chair to walk us through the friendly color pairs, so your white, blue spirits and so on. This time around you get the enemies, but they're kind of frenemies because they play well together. So why don't we start off with white-black tokens. That's going to get us underway. Randy, what are white-black tokens trying to do in general?
Yeah, this is not one of the stronger synergies that's baked into the set. Some of these archetypes can be very linear. You really want everything to commit. White-black, it's kind of a value deck. You're sacrificing things. You're getting tokens. Cards are giving you value back out from the graveyard. But a little bit of a sacrifice theme is kind of the biggest thing going on. Some tokens as well.
Right, okay, so why don't we take a look at the top 5 commons that you are drafting in your Magic Online draft deck. So here they are. So you've got removal in Deadweight, removal Angelic Purge, removal Murderous, Compulsion, removal Throttle, and then all the value with Dauntless Cathar. No surprise to see plenty of removal in the top commons.
Yeah, no, veterans of Booster Draft, no. You got to take the good removal spells early if you want to get them into your deck, and you want to get them into your deck. Dauntless Cathar also hanging out as the one creature on this board. I think that is the best common creature across these two colors. It's, a serviceable body when you just summon it, and then it's also giving you value back from the graveyard when you trade it off or sacrifice it.
How big a deal is the sacrifice a permanent on Angelic Purge? Is that just kind of designed as a little stop sign on turn 3? Is that what that's for?
I think that the design's really elegant because delirium matters, and the ability to get an extra permanent into your graveyard is actually, and sometimes it's an advantage. Sure, you don't want to sacrifice a land on turn 3. That's not the right plan, but I mean, sometimes you want to sacrifice a creature on turn 3 because they've got some super scary thing. More often, you're developing your board early, and then you get to turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, you've got to deal with a troublesome permanent, and you kind of also want to see, what do I really want in my graveyard? I've definitely sacrificed enchantments to it just to turn on delirium.
All right, fair enough. So those are your top 5 commons. What about the uncommons? And I should do the legalese bit. These are the cards that you've been drafting in winning Magic Online draft decks. You see it at the bottom there, among the draft winners on Magic Online, and 1st through 5th. So these aren't first picks, these are in the top 5 picks. So you see Tooth Collector on screen there, bound by Moonsilver, Nearheath, Chaplain. We've also got the awesome flavor of Sinister Concoction and Kindly Stranger.
Yeah, and these are all good cards. You start to see the delirium kick in. It's also interesting that don't read this as Tooth Collector is the best uncommon.
Right.
Read this as Tooth Collector is the uncommon you're going to wind up taking early the most often. Because people don't really pass Kindly Stranger. People don't really pass Nearheath Chaplain. If they do, grab it. But you're not going to see those cards at 5th pick. So you kind of see this thing where if your white-black deck was successful, these are the sorts of cards you were taking 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Yeah, and when you see that I got 2 Tooth Collectors, you think, okay, that explains why I had a nice white-black tokens there. All right, and so that's your uncommons, and that's your white-black. So enemy color pairs, we move from white-black, 2 completely new colors. Let's go to blue-red. And in quotes, spells matter. Randy, do spells matter in blue-red?
Absolutely. I do not remember drafting this decks that had this many instants and sorceries in them before. Like, I want 15 in my blue-red spells deck. This archetype is very linear. Like, when you go blue-red spells matter, you have to commit. You have to say, you know what? If I can get away with only playing 5 creatures, that would be great. Probably you're going to wind up with more like 10, but yeah, 50-50, you didn't commit enough. I don't like the 12 creature, 11 spell, commit, move in.
Right, and I think that's really useful for people who haven't drafted decks like this before, because we go out of our way, especially for newer players, to say all the time, hey, look, creatures are what Limited's about.
17 land,
14
15
to
creature,
16.
8 spell.
Exactly.
That's a good recipe for starting.
Right.
This is not your everyday ordinary draft archetype. This is definitely a little bit off the wall, and I think it's awesome. And there are a density of spells that are worth drafting. Like, basically everything with the word investigate on it is playable.
All right.
Just if it says investigate, you can take it, you can put it in your blue-red spells deck.
Well, let's investigate. Here come the top 5 commons that you're drafting in your successful Magic Online draft decks. Fiery Temple, well, of course, because that's removal.
Just the best common.
Just the Wind. Niblis of Dusk, well, of course, Niblis of Dusk, yes, it's a creature, but it's a creature that loves you to be playing spells.
Absolutely.
Sleep Paralysis, and then Stitched Mangler.
Yeah, Stitched Mangler is often just going to slow the game down, and it's funny. The common, which is the most important to the Spells Matter archetype, is actually not on here, because you don't have to take Pyre Hound in the first 5 picks. You can actually get your Pyre Hounds later because no one else wants them.
Right, it belongs only in your deck.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's your top 5 commons. let's have a look at your top 5 uncommons. Reckless Scholar, Geist Blast, Lightning Axe, yes please. Kessig Forgemaster, which is one of my favorite cards in the set, and Inner Struggle you see on the right of your screen there.
Yeah, both Reckless Scholar and Mad Prophet are good if you get a lot of Just the Wind, a lot of Madness cards. Geist Blast is going to be great in pretty much every version of Red-Blue. When you have the blue mana to play that out of the graveyard to make, 2 copies of whatever, maybe you're stealing multiple creatures at the same time, maybe you're rising twice as many zombies from the tides. Card is just nutty in this archetype.
Now, is Geist Blast a card that is priced in such a way that it doesn't get to the blue-red player because other players at the table forget the bottom bit and they just go 3 mana, instant, 2 damage, creature or player, versatile, thank you very much?
It floats later than it would. If it was a 1 mana shock, everybody would be first picking it. 3 mana for 2 damage at instant speed, though, it's decent. Like, you'll play it, but it's not even that much better than, like, an Explosive Apparatus, which people don't even think is a good card. So it'll float to, you can get it 4th pick, you can get it 6th pick, but it's not coming around the table the way Pyrohound will.
Watching a ton of drafts this week, it looks to me like the number of creatures in this archetype keeps going down. I started seeing winning lists with 9 and 8 creatures,
sure,
and then 7. And then I started seeing people playing 6 and 5. I've seen 4 winning.
Nice.
And this is like little dribbly 1/3. I mean, Silent Observer is a big deal because obviously it does have a proper big body on it, 1/5. But yeah, even these 1/3s and 2/3s, like you said, Stitched Mangler.
Yeah, but I don't even want to be blocking with creatures. I want to be blocking with, like, tap that and lock it down. I want my creatures to be the prowess guys like Sanguinary Mage or Pyrehounds with sort of permanent prowess.
Yeah, Pyrehound's just an awesome card. All right, so that was blue-red. Let's switch up again. This time we're going to go to black-green. And this time we're going to talk about Delirium, the new mechanic.
Yeah, kind of the Abzan colors are the Delirium colors. So black-green, black-white, even green-white sometimes will have a Delirium, although the green-white humans theme is stronger. So this is probably the one which is most purely a Delirium deck. These colors are late-game value colors when they play together. They're about getting stuff in the graveyard. You can get card advantage out of your lands with things like Groundskeeper and Stoic Builder. So it's very much setting up for the late game where you can turn all these cards on and just pound people with that late-game incremental advantage.
Be a designer for a minute, because of course you were inside R&D for some years.
Sure.
It strikes me that Delirium is a very clever mechanic in that they've pitched it in such a way that you can skew your deck if you want to towards making it happen, but you can also still be a Delirium deck and not have to skew your deck towards making it happen. It does seem to happen pretty naturally quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, if you're in a deck that wants to go into the late game. Like, I think that if you're one of the super aggressive decks, you basically don't want to invest anything in getting there. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's very cleverly designed. I think it's in a really good spot. I think the flavor of it suits this block really well, and the mechanics suit the block really well. So
why don't we take a look at the top 5 commons that you've been picking 1 through 5 in your winning Magic Online deck. So removal, yeah, there's Murderous Compulsion again.
Removal.
I do like Solitary Hunter a good deal.
Yeah, that's just good solid value. It's not a particular synergy card here. Crow of Dark Tidings is the one that's on here for synergy. Pretty decent body, 2-power flyer for 3 mana, but this deck actively wants to put cards into the graveyard, so you see people picking that card up when they draft black-green.
Yep, and then let's go into the uncommons. So you're not going to see these as often, obviously. There's a lot of uncommons in the set, but if you pick up pretty much any of these, you're going to feel pretty happy about them. Pack Guardian we saw in the draft this morning.
Pack Guardian is just amazing. Yeah. It's Obsessive Skinner, which is the card that you should really take note of here. It's listed as an innocuous little, grizzly bear, 2 mana, 2/2 in most decks, but once you hit Delirium, a +1/+1 counter every turn is great.
Yeah. It is a real payoff. And in general, again, from a designer point of view, you expect the payoffs for a mechanic like Delirium to live at uncommon.
Sure. So yeah, no, it's the way they've set the setup for sure.
All right, so that is black-green Delirium. We've done white-black, we've done blue-red, we've done black-green. So how about we get aggressive? Oh, and that's what they've even called it in a subtle hint for what red-white is trying to do.
Yeah, this is the fastest archetype. When it comes together, you can. It's the curve starts at 1, which is kind of unusual for limited. You can play a bunch of 1-drops. You can play a bunch of 2s. You can play a bunch of combat tricks. You can play Uncaged Fury for double strike, and you really want to be playing those early creatures so that when you attack on turn 3 and turn 4, combat trick to win the fight versus whatever they're blocking with, then drop another creature in addition, and you can just you can smash people pretty quick with this.
I'm just taking a moment to stare at Archangel Avacynian and just, again, weep at how completely extraordinary she is in the current world, not just of limited, but of standard as well. That card has already told some stories.
Right. I mean, flavor-wise, maybe fits into the red-white deck more than the other decks, but she goes any deck with white mana wants her, and decks without white mana often start thinking about splashing even as soon as they see one.
Right. All right, so top commons then. What are you drafting at home in your winning Magic Online draft decks for red-white? Here are the commons. So you'd expect to see Angelic Page, you'd expect to see Fiery Temper, their Dauntless Cathar, and Voldaren Duelist, a card I like for the swing, and that's one of those pivotal cards, Randy, in that it sits at 4 mana where you're wanting it on turn 4. It's where they're on 14 maybe, and they've got a blocker down that's a reasonable blocker, and they think, okay, you might be attacking for 6, but I block the best of that, so I'm probably only taking 3. And then the turn 4 play is Voldaren Duelist. It's like your 1 blocker can't. Now you're taking 6 plus the 3 from Voldaren Duelist. Turn 4 Voldaren Duelist is often functionally game in this archetype.
Totally agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of these 4-drops in this set. Inspiring Captain can play a similar role.
Right.
You know, the Intrepid Provisioner in Green-White Human set can play a similar role. But I think Voldaren Duelist is the best of those 4-mana creatures. And this is the archetype where it's at its best, which is kind of bad news for the Vampires players. I think the red-black Vampires players are like, couldn't you have made her 3/1, something where she'd float to me and people wouldn't keep stealing my dream card?
Yeah.
Yeah, the red-white deck steals it from the Vampires player all the time.
Well, serves them right for being bloodsuckers. All right, let's move on to the top 5 uncommons that you are drafting at home in red-white. Nearheath Chaplain, there's the Forgemaster again.
Yep.
Breakneck Rider, Avacynian Missionaries as a card that's very popular. And Bound by Moonsilver, that again seems one of those really neat, elegant cards. White has had pacifisms and arrests and so on.
Yeah, but again, that sacrifice, that ability to put things in the graveyard with Delirium makes it a clever design. But you know what? Just the vanilla version of it, even before you start thinking about sacking, is great. Remove the blocker, attack through. Not a ton of synergy cards there, because the archetype is really about just having a good curve, having combat tricks. So you don't have these, uncommon build around me's. You just want all of your cards to be individually good at doing what they're supposed to do.
This is the archetype, of course, that Fabrizio and Terry took to victory in Grand Prix Barcelona. But a card that is missing from our lists here so far is Rush of Adrenaline.
Right.
And what was interesting to me about that deck that Fabrizio built in the top 8 last weekend is that it was sort of a combo deck. It had a combo kill multiple times during that top 8, and that's not something that's apparent from what we've just shown you there.
Well, it's another one where, I mean, we're looking at the cards that are picked 1st through 5th, but really good draft decks are getting good cards 8th. Like, you don't need to take Rush of Adrenaline in the first 5, or at least you didn't need to. Maybe Fabrizio's going to skew the stats. We look at next week's Magic Online stats. Maybe the card does creep up into the top 5. But when you're in an archetype and there are cards that you're the only one who really wants them, that's where you really can make a living in booster draft. Now, Rush of Adrenaline, I think people are coming to realize is good enough. Pretty much all the red decks kind of want. Even blue-red spells will sometimes play that card with 8 creatures in the deck.
Right, yeah, because I mean, as soon as you get to say, as a defensive trick, you save your 1/3 and just go, there's the 4th point of toughness, it gets to block again next turn.
Or, I mean, how good is the Rush of Adrenaline Uncaged Fury combo kill on a prowess creature? We've seen that in Standard for the last year, right?
Yeah. So that's red-white aggression. We haven't left them till last deliberately, just because we don't like Brian David Marshall. It's time for Simic, or green-blue. Let's take a look at Clues Matter.
Yeah, this is another one that really, you want to commit. When you're going green-blue, you want to get the payoff cards. You want to commit to being able to generate a lot of clues and really take advantage of those clues. It's definitely a high synergy archetype. Little on the dirtily side. You got to make sure that you keep drafting your low drops. You don't get run over by the aggro decks early. But then when you get to the late game, you're the one who has that inevitability.
I do love what you said there about don't get run over early. 2-drops are not, if you like this archetype, 2-drops are not sexy, but my lord, they let you play the game long enough, and that's important. Let's take a look at the top commons that you've been drafting in the blue-green archetype. So we have Sleep Paralysis, Rabid Bite, you see in the middle there, Byway Courier. I love the art on Byway Courier.
And that's exactly, you just want to block and trade, right? 3/2, it comes down early enough that I can trade with a really decent-sized creature, but now I'm just up a clue. I'm up a card in the long game, and this card has helped me stabilize and survive to get there.
And the top uncommons, let's take a look at those. There we are.
Graph Mole, #1, 2/4, so it blocks spectacularly. Life gain, so you live longer. That and the Erdwile Eliminator are exactly where you want to be in this archetype.
Absolutely. Green-blue's a ton of fun if you can piece the clues together. And that is the story of our Magic Online draft archetypes.